Alrighty, folks, and we're back at it with our latest Big Mets update segment. I'm currently recording this right now to our 1,400 concurrent amazing Mets fans watching live on YouTube and on X. Thank you all so much for being here, as it is 10:54 p.m. Eastern. The night before, many of you are watching this as a pre-recorded video that I'll be posting in the morning the next day, as we've been doing lately here on the channel, because we have a lot to get into. Not just with the Mets series sweeping the Red Sox, literally taking care of all their dirty laundry, from the White Sox to the Red Sox. It was a nice wash that your mama did. And just like that, the Mets have now won 7 straight games, or 12 games above 500, and they are nipping at the heels of the Atlanta Braves and will continue to do so until they inevitably find themselves in that position. But the Mets, I'm not just talking about their winning heroics today, led by Jesse Winker with a grand slam. I mean, the bullpen turning out more double plays than you could ever fathom for the first time since 1966, having for 3 consecutive innings the way that they did. I'm here to break down with each and every one of you the latest on Kodai Senga, as there's some exciting updates to get into, a lot more optimism than maybe we initially believed on when he can return and what his role will be. And then as well with Tyler Megill coming off of a 4-inning outing where he gave up 3 earned runs, 5 hits allowed there against the Boston Red Sox. Less than ideal for sure. Paul Blackburn and the Mets assistant GM. So let's deep dive all the little details on exactly this. But before we do, everybody, let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsor on the channel that you all know very well, America's #1 sportsbook at BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Okay, and final thing, I'll just say that's separate from the segment, but it's in the live show because we got some back and forth going on. Every time Priest on a Plane is here in the chat, there's always some type of drama, even when he doesn't start it, even though I know he does it sometimes, either intentionally or not. Either way, we got a debate right now talking about the batting average of Lindor back in May at .67, and he's being corrected that was .83, and that he's being told he was a liar. That's okay. All right, as much as we can rag not Pete, but Priest on a Plane for a lot of things in the live show. Famous Lindor, not an actual hater, but ragged on him heavily in the first half of the season, like a lot of other Mets fans did. And talking about his slow start, it's okay if the number wasn't accurate. I don't think anyone is losing sleep over 0.67 average in a span of time for Lindor, or 0.83. It also doesn't matter because Francisco Lindor is an MVP candidate right now. It's legit, and we need to lock in and appreciate an amazing season. As David Stern said himself, and as we broke down our Big Mets update video yesterday, potentially the best position player season in Metropolitan history is what we're witnessing right now with Mr. Smile himself. But enough on that nonsense. Let's talk about some big things here with Kodai Senga, because as we just talked about literally 48 to 72 hours ago, the Mets are interested, or at least considering, Kodai Senga as a reliever. However, the latest reports of SNY indicate that might not actually be the case. And the reason being, Kodai Senga is a guy that is so regimented, and the Mets want to make sure that he isn't really thrown off. So it's too early to definitively say what will happen. The plans are far from set, but Senga impressed Team Brass with a strong 25-pitch bullpen session on Wednesday that we saw at Citi Field. He made just 1 start this season that we know, and then we saw him fall down with that calf injury after striking out 9 against the Atlanta Braves throughout, 5 innings or so? He was insane. And Kodai Senga was so good, and we need to see him back as soon as possible. He looked comfortable. He felt great, and Carlos Mendoza said it himself in a pregame presser this past day that it was really nice to see Kodai Senga back out there and really now having, letting it loose, not holding anything back with his pitches, as he threw a 25-pitch session there at Citi Field. And as Senga said, if the Mets need him down the stretch, he may ramp up and come back sooner as a reliever if they need him in those tight, high-leverage situations. But the Mets view him as a better spot to come in as a starter, even if he's not going to eat more than just a couple innings. And the reason for that is the following. The logic in making Senga a starter, even if not fully built up, is that he would be more comfortable and productive in his most familiar role. He could start a playoff game, last a few innings, then give away to a piggybacking reliever that the Mets certainly have multiple options of, including someone like potentially Tyler Megill. And that's where we get into the conversation of Tyler Megill, because while he didn't look all that great against the Boston Red Sox, the Mets have an interesting decision on their hands, because we saw Mr. Paul Blackburn pitch a perfectly fine outing in rehab this past night there for we saw in the minor leagues. I believe it was with the Rummel Ponies, if I'm not mistaken. If not, at the AAA level, Paul Blackburn was completely fine. He handled his own, and he'll be returning the Mets rotation for their series next week against the Toronto Blue Jays in Toronto. He will be activated this weekend. So what are the Mets going to do here in the coming days? They're either going to send Tyler Megill to the bullpen or either send potentially Huascar Brosman down or someone else. But Brosman just pitched 1.1 masterful scoreless innings for the Mets, including a huge double play ball. I don't think Huascar is going to be deserving of that send down just yet. And Megill, while I love the idea of him as a reliever, also wouldn't be shocked if the Mets do still send him back down at the end of the day once Blackburn needs to be activated if they don't feel that Megill can properly adjust in the pen. However, I will say that what my viewpoint isn't necessarily the same as the coaching staff, because what the reports indicate is that the Mets do actually have a higher confidence and optimism in Tyler Megill handling a relief role in which he has been a reliever for the Mets in the past. Not that they had an overwhelming sense of confidence or success in doing so, but knowing that that is a role that he has found himself in, and it isn't going to be as foreign to him the way it might be more foreign to a Kodai Senga, who hasn't done that at all in his professional career, at least with the Mets. In the MPB, he was a starter for a decade plus, so not a lot of opportunity there in the pen either. Simply put, Kodai Senga, a flamethrowing right-hander, our ace when everything is said and done and everyone's healthy and looking right. Imagine him impacting this Mets team as soon as he can return. September 25th against the Atlanta Braves is when we could see Kodai Senga return. It would be electric, and it would be fitting if Kodai does return against the same team that he made his debut against this season, striking out those 9 batters against the Braves without a problem. Can he do the same in Atlanta this time, and probably the biggest series of the season for the Mets, or second to last series of the year? We will find out then, but for right now, the latest on Kodai Senga is the Mets like the idea of him staying as a starter, even if that means he's just going to say throw anywhere from 2 to 4 innings versus him really being stretched out, and kind of seeing how things go as he ramps up in his rehab and starts to get those rehab outings over the next week or so. That's going to be exciting to see, hopefully over the next couple weeks for Kodai Senga's case as he continues to ramp up there and hopefully get those minor league games, as I mentioned, soon, right? I think that's what we all want. So Kodai Senga, that's the latest on that, folks. Frank Sessa, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. I hope the polar bear is not ready to hibernate. I hope so either. I mean, we saw polar bear Pete Alonso have a less than ideal game 3 against the Red Sox, snapping the bat across his knee because he was not happy, and I don't blame him. I wouldn't be happy either if I'm losing millions by the day because they can't hit a lick with runners in scoring position. I go 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Having said that, I think we're going to still see some big hits from Pete Alonso before the season's end. We just got to hope we find more consistency with it, because that's been the big deal with Alonso. Horrendous in high-leverage situations for the most part this year. Has had those flashes of brilliance over the past couple months, but we haven't had it in unison nearly to a degree. It just hasn't stuck out as much because the Mets continue to win. Their rotation has been leading the way in all the National League since June 13th in team rotation ERA. And the Mets bullpen, throughout their greatest run as of late, have posted just right around a 1 ERA in their 7-game win streak. Yeah, a lot of things are going great in Mets land. Not so much that we saw there in the case of Tyler Megill's latest outing, but he still may stay on the Mets roster, so we'll see what happens there. Same thing with Paul Blackburn. He will return against the Blue Jays. So now let's get into our latest 2 updates here. One having to do with the Mets GM status. Yes, you heard that correctly. What is going on with the Mets? Not necessarily GM, but let's actually talk more so about their assistant GM. So let me scroll down my personal Twitter. Make sure to follow it at WardyNYM. You guys can also actually follow my main account now, which is the WardyNYM, where I have over 64,000 strong there on Twitter X for you guys to check out if you haven't already. And thank you guys so much for doing that too. If you guys are watching this on YouTube right now, live or on replay, 64.4K, make sure to follow me there too. That's right. Do more of my live tweeting throughout the games and post some exclusive stuff that you won't see on my personal Twitter for sure, along with retweeting and posting our live streams that we do every single night as well. But to go back to my page here, I wanted to talk about what we have here in the Mets assistant GM situation, because we all saw not all that long ago a front office piece in the Mets drop, and they will not be in the organization with the season's end, that being an Elizabeth Ben. Now the Mets have made another front office decision, a surprising one to many, and that is by going to part ways now with Mr. Ian Levin, who has been in the organization since 2005. Mets assistant GM will part with the team at the end of the season. This continues the front office shakeup made by David Stearns, as you can expect. And David, who has really no aspirations or true interest to hire a GM right now, which why would you? Not only because of the Mets run right now, but even the offseason. I won't be shocked if David just says, I'm going to be the guy. It's going to be me, because I'm perfectly fine with David running ship. And there honestly might be more butting of heads that come into play. Even if you hire a guy that you know you're really confident in, you have a great relationship with, maybe you have good communication, you're still going to have butting of heads. And I know David isn't opposed to having great like minds around him or opposing minds. That's what he's trying to build here in his front office. People that understand his philosophy, but also aren't afraid to push back and to have their own intel as well. But at the core of this is David Stern's cleaning more house of the previous regimes, right? Levin, he's been a part of the org the past 20 years. I wish him and his family well, but Levin is also not a guy that's an overly big needle mover in the organization either. Now we can have David Stearns really appoint someone that's either internally in the org already that he hired this past offseason to move into that assistant GM role, or he can then hire people that he thinks is best suited for said position come this offseason when the Mets are hopefully done with their World Series run, right? Knocking on wood, everybody. But that's the latest there on the Mets updates with their assistant GM. Obviously, I'm not completely opposed to the Mets adding an actual GM outside of David Stearns, like what they initially were going to do with Billy Epler before that all blew up in front of its face last offseason. But I also really like the idea of David Stearns continuing to control things the way that he is right now as a diehard Mets fan growing up under an owner who grew up a diehard Mets fan as well, and Steve Cohen. And speaking of Steve, just a little point I'd like to make. Find me another owner that's going to go out of their way to tweet and say, hey, I don't know about you, but I'm watching the Phillies Braves tonight. Mind you, when the Mets aren't even in a playoff spot, still a month left to play in the season. This was a couple days ago he tweeted this. But seriously, a guy that's worth what? Right around $20 million or so is going out of his way to watch those key games and not even involving the Mets. Find me another owner in Major League Baseball that does that, because you won't. And that's as simple as that. So that's the latest updates there on the assistant GM front, everybody. Curious how you feel about that, my live viewers and my replay viewers down below. But last but not least, now let's get into the latest updates having to do with the Mets farm, because we saw some key takeaways there on AAA Syracuse and their latest matchup over this past night as they lost 10-8 there that we saw, unfortunately, but it wasn't for a lack of effort on the offensive end, right? And even though John Birdie, Mets killer, torched them and had a 4-hit game and a leadoff, Jason Dominguez, who is a tremendous minor league player, and I highly implore the Yankees to keep him down there because that's the best thing for the Yankees and their success. Please cue the sarcasm. Yes, I think they're idiots for not calling up Jason Dominguez yet, but what we saw there on the offensive end for the Mets would be huge. Drew Gilbert, a 2-for-5 day, a 2-for-4 average, a 680 OPS. Mind you, he missed the majority of the season with a hamstring injury. Drew Gilbert, Mets top outfield prospect, has now hit home runs safely in 6 of his past 13 games. So over the past 2 weeks, he's hitting a home run on pace every other game, and they're all absolute no-doubters. Drew Gilbert, one of the sweetest swings I'm seeing from a Mets prospect. If I'm being quite frank, this is one of my favorite swings I've seen since Michael Conforto, and Michael will always be my favorite. One of the sweetest swings in baseball, Michael, especially when he was going oppo and was truly at his peak there in the 2019 season when he was oh so good that we saw. But Drew Gilbert, big day for him. What we saw, Mike Brosseau had a nice day too, a utility guy the Mets may consider as a call before the year's end, should they wish over, say, a Pablo Reyes, who they just called up for speed. Brosseau doesn't provide speed, but he provides defensive versatility, even though he's not great. Can play DH too, like he did today that we saw there. A 261 average, 786 OPS. Jackie Bradley Jr. hasn't done all that much after a nice little start there in Syracuse. A 202 average of 594 OPS, so not a guy I expect the Mets to call upon anytime soon. Porter, who continues to do great stuff there as a catching option in the minor leagues. A 272 average, 869 OPS. Had 2 RBIs, including 3 hits, a 3-for-4 game there, and that loss 10-8 for the Syracuse Mets. And as we continue the minor league breakdown here, let's take a look at the other slated games as the Brooklyn Cyclones won their game 1-0. And my guy, Nick Morabito, with a 291 average, a 731 OPS, drafted, top draft pick by the Mets a year ago there, batting leadoff and commanding center field beautifully. Nick Morabito has been my favorite prospect all year long there in Brooklyn. That continues. And on the pitching end, they got 5 innings of work there from Garcia. Scoreless innings there, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk, 3 hits there. Ammons, my guy. For those that don't know Ammons, let me enlighten you just briefly, folks. Ryan Ammons is the man that the Mets acquired as one of the sneaker David Stearns moves this past offseason for Slayton, Justin Slayton, who's been utilized as a key reliever for the Red Sox this year. Slayton has had plenty of success, including giving up a meatball of a home run there to Mark Vientos just a night or so ago. We see Slayton be acquired from the Mets to the Red Sox right around in the month of December in 2023, with Stearns officially at the helm as Pobo. And what do we get? Ryan Ammons in return. Ryan Ammons, who's drafted in the 10th round, a flame-throwing, a dominant southpaw option there that we have in the minor leagues, 23 years of age, who has posted a 2.18 ERA this year in the minor leagues. And he has absolutely been brilliant that we have seen now at the Brooklyn Cyclone level. Now we're looking at a 1.33 ERA there for my guy. Love to see that there in the Cyclones. Shout out Ammons. Beautiful work there. I don't have anything. I may or may not have stuff on the Rumble Ponies today. If I don't, that's because the Rumble Ponies didn't have a game today. However, I could be wrong. I think the Rumble Ponies did. So we'll double check on them. But Ammons, 2 scoreless innings, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, a 1.33 ERA this year with the Brooklyn Cyclones, and a 2.1 overall in the minor leagues. A guy that could impact the Mets out of the bullpen as a lefty option as soon as the late 2025 or 2026 season. So let's get into the Port St. Lucie Mets, and then I will double check if there was anything from the Rumble Ponies as well. Port St. Lucie won their game in 7 innings, 4-3. We got Vargas there leaning off 2 for 4 with a run scored. We got my guy Colin Houck finally starting to hit the baseball well. It's better late than never. Mets first round draft pick out of Braves country last year. Houck, 19 years of age, 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. Literally one of his better days all season long, because Houck's had a fairly underwhelming first year in the pros, but he's a teenager. It's going to happen. Not overly concerned there. So let's double check now on the Rumble Ponies, and then that'll do it for our show here for our live viewers and our replay viewers that are watching this as a pre-recorded segment posted in the morning after the fact here. That'll be right around sometime September 5th. For the Rumble Ponies, they lost their game 6-4 to Somerset. So let's see what the biggest takeaway was in this one, if I didn't allude to already. Unless, wait, am I going nuts? No, yeah, I didn't talk about this one yet. Okay. What we saw is my guy Ryan Clifford with a 233 average at 807 OPS, tears the cover off the baseball with a 1 for 4 day. We saw Alex Ramirez 1 for 4, not looking great though for the most part this season. Since moving out of leadoff there in that position, he has been the same. Jet Williams though, 1 for 4, as Jet is continuing to ramp up his rehab after being out all year long basically with his wrist injury. We saw our guy there and Jordan 2 for 3 and with 2 runs scored, and Jalen Palmer 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs, the New York native there. And on the pitching end, nothing notable. Moreno didn't have a great outing. 5 earned runs over 4 innings, 5 strikeouts. And that's going to do it, folks, for the farm updates and for our latest big Mets updates here in Metsland. 1200, thank you so much for the $2 haul. I appreciate that. He says Sapucki would have been undefeated next year. If you guys know the Thomas Sapucki inside joke, we've been doing this since he pitched and got absolutely torn up by the San Francisco Giants summers ago. And I want to say it was the 2021 season, right? I don't think it was 2022. I think it was 2021. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was 2022. Either way, Sapucki then got traded, funny enough, to the team that cooked him and the San Francisco Giants. A whole full circle moment that we talk about all the time there. And Sapucki, 1200, thank you for the donation. Thank you all so much for my live viewers that were patient and enjoyed the live show tonight after a victorious matchup where the Mets swept the Boston Red Sox by a final score of 8-3. If you did not check out our post-game coverage, what are you doing? Make sure to check it out after you're watching this video before we get set for that big 3-game set against the Cincinnati Reds beginning this Friday. So you got the nice off day tomorrow. Enjoy it, Mets fans. I know that I will technically today, depending on when you're watching this. And I'll see you all again for Friday's coverage and every single game the rest of the season, heading into the offseason for all your Mets needs. We got you covered here at WardyNYM. Thank you all so much for watching. Shout out BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook. Make sure to check them out before you get out of here by clicking that link down below in the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. What our awesome friends are at BetUS. Thank you all so much for watching. Love you all to death. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.